Welcome back to Your Voice First podcast. Today, we've got Vaughn Graves, the CEO and co-founder of USIC Brands. Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For people who aren't already aware of what USIC is, can you kind of give a high-level overview of what is USIC?
So, USIC is a brand for undiscovered artists. I use brand because brand is broad. USIC is what I see USIC as being is everything. It's a lifestyle. It's going to be products. It's going to be artists. It's just going to be something that people do and just are. You know what I mean? And I think that if we do it right and execute right, it's going to be, it's going to identify how serious you are about your music. You know, are you on music? If not, then, what are you doing? So that's what USIC is. Originally, we started off as a tech company. We Euro-stepped. I'm not going to say pivoted, but we Euro-stepped a little bit. And right now what we're doing is actually just managing artists and just trying to add as much value to artists as possible from a management standpoint. The reason why we chose management as opposed to a record label, management allows us to be more inclusive as opposed to exclusive. So labels like to guard artists, and this is mine, no one can touch them, and kind of keep them underneath their umbrella. As a management company, what we're allowed to do is broker deals and be able to find our artists the right situation for them. So rather than it being one record label, we could very well have bridges and relationships with every record label.
You've got big plans for USIC, and just from interacting with Alexa for musicians, I've started to see USIC comes out of a lot of musicians' mouths. Whether they're working with you or they're not, you're on people's minds. So I'm just going to say you're doing a great job so far. For musicians that are listening and are curious of what it takes to get on USIC, are there any preliminaries or requirements, or kind of what does the process look like when you want to bring on a new musician onto the USIC brand?
So we're still growing and trying to figure out the best way possible to serve as many artists as we can. What we were doing, we were selling packages for just like simple services like management services. So we wouldn't technically be your manager, but we will get you set up with the things that a manager should be having you set up with. But then you have to take that and then go do it yourself. Kind of like Papa Murphy's, I guess. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Papa Murphy's. It was a pizza place. Yeah, dope. So,
I know of it.
People who don't. So with Papa Murphy's, the difference between them and like a Papa John's. Papa John's is going to cook the pizza for you, and all you got to do is eat it. Papa Murphy's is going to give you all the ingredients, but you have to go take that and do what you will with it. So that was our approach originally. There were certain artists that started to stand out to us. The first artist that we really got behind and was King Shot. He was a young artist out of Columbus, Ohio. Very, very talented, very humble, but has that it factor about him where like he's going places. Something that I also identify with as well. So I related to that and loved his energy and his passion. From there we expanded out and we have really, really great artists. I'll just go ahead and throw them out. $sign Asia, who's actually opening up for Duress Deshawn tomorrow at Scully's. Really big show, so she's also underneath the brand. Poppy K, who's also an incredible artist, engineers his own music, and he reminds me of like a Russ type of artist. So I'm excited for him as well. We have Quandot, who's very much in the scene of what's hot right now and where the kids are listening to. So Quandot has his hand on that, and he brings a lot to the table as well. Bankroll, LV, heavy dollar sign. Everybody likes dollar signs in their names now. And then myself. I'm also an artist on the platform. Oh, also, I'm sorry, Nasty V, Sad Boy Lev. Since I'm naming people, I can't miss out on Jay Mills, who's also an incredible engineer. and is doing an amazing job at our studio of just keeping people through the doors, man, and introducing music to more people. So everybody has a collective, cohesive mentality. So if anything that we're looking for, are you willing to buy into what music is? Are you willing to support, the other artists that are on the platform, and rather than looking at them as competitors, can you look at them as teammates? I think that, collectively together, everybody can add value to each other. You can take an artist like Shad, who has 15,000, 16,000 followers, and he's showing love and supporting the artists that might have 2,000 or 3,000. Everybody utilizing social media, putting each other on each other's lives. I'll get everybody, make sure they have TikToks, since that's the new wave. But yeah, just definitely just a collaborative, cohesive energy that, and culture that we've been able to create and kind of maintain. So, we definitely want to preserve that.
Started off West Coast, tech company, did that Euro step, I love that term. Came back to Columbus, brought all that energy over here.
Absolutely.
USIC is now doing some amazing services and has an amazing foothold on the music scene here in Columbus. Shifting into what you guys are focusing your energy into today. You talked a little bit about it, but if we could just dive deeper into where is the USIC team focusing their energy right now?
So right now it's about content. We spent a lot of time last year just building the brand holistically,
Getting people familiar with what is music, getting them curious about it.
even just asking that question, what is music? And then being able to kind of convert that into people that actually are
Fans of it and wanted to be a part of it. Now that we have so many,
we have a great group and handful of artists that need to now get their music out into the world, so that we can continue to progress forward as a unit. So we need every artist to be successful on the platform, and we need them to do that, to also show other artists how to do it and how USIC is doing it. So we need them to be those pioneers, for music. So it's just getting music out, shooting videos, marketing, touring. The plan is in May, I want to open up another studio on the West Coast. That'll create a pipeline between Columbus and LA that has a lot of other really great artists.
It also makes us more attractive, so when we can go get, international artists, like a Kait, shout out to Kait out of Melbourne, Australia,
or like a Koji Radical out of London. But you can go get an artist that's doing really well overseas, bring them to Columbus. They record in our studio. They're able to work with artists locally. Hopefully be able to influence each other, so they can take some of Columbus back to London or Australia with them, and vice versa. Now we have something new that we learned and kind of were influenced by with this artist, and now Columbus's sound is starting to have a lot of different nuances and different sounds to it as well, and then be able to send them out to LA, and they can go get right back into our studio and go do a podcast, and an interview, and still be able to kind of champion the USIC brand. So.
USIC is helping undiscovered artists.
Yes.
And I love that you guys are setting up this pipeline and focusing on this international scope.
Absolutely.
And it seems like all the content you guys are creating is there for the international focus. It's not like you guys are just creating content that's playing on your own internal TVs.
Right.
You 2 days ago discovered TikTok, and now you're experimenting to try to understand the platform. You were here yesterday figuring out Alexa.
Right.
You're a very innovative pioneer. You're trying to figure out what the best thing is. You're trying it out.
Right.
That way you can share that knowledge with the rest of your Columbus musicians and help them to get discovered. And I think you're on the right path with this. How did you come up with this idea for USIC? What was the genesis? What was that original problem or idea that sparked what we see now, which is an amazing brand company?
So for those that don't know, I was an artist first.
I think that's important when you're looking at tech and platforms that have musicians on it. I think the one thing that I felt like these. So actually, I'll go backwards. So let me start over. I moved out to LA. So my last album I released, it was called A Fearless LP, or A Fearless Story on Spotify. And it was pretty much life after college. I'm a storyteller, so all of my projects always have some sort of narrative, and they're all pretty consistent, like Terminators or something. You know what I mean? You always kind of know. You can kind of catch up if you like me now. You can go listen to my past projects and kind of catch up to where the story is and where we were at. But I went to OU. I had a label called Yizzo. Graduated and moved to Los Angeles the first time. Moved back home for a couple years, which sounds like a long time, and was trying to figure it out. Started working on my next project, which was Fearless. So this is prior to 2016. The album, was put my all into it. Took my time, as I always do. At the time, I was going through a lot with my family, and so it was a very dark project. That allowed me to tour regionally, and then it sent me out to LA. I had this I don't know what it was, but I had my intuition, is I have a pretty strong intuition. So something in me was telling me, you need to go back to LA and kind of like finish what it is that you started. There's something out there that you need to learn or discover or figure out or something. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know. But I knew that when I saw it, I would know. So with no money, I had a show in LA and I had no money. So I'm like, all right. I started looking for writing jobs for like TV shows and stuff. Just trying to find some way for me to like be able to live out there. And was getting no callbacks and nothing was happening. The voice was getting louder though. You gotta go. So I had to act on faith. I flew out there and was completely prepared to sleep on a park bench if I needed to, just whatever it takes to find this thing, I get out there, and as soon as I land, a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in a very long time hits me up and invites me to his Air BnB. From there, I learned about this program that was dealing with tech and apps, and so I get accepted into this program. The program housed me, which was great, because now I have a place to stay for a couple months, which is a blessing. So that was one of those things where acting on faith, it just kind of worked out. I have a place to stay. So now the learning curve for me was that now I'm in this space of tech and apps, and I know nothing about that. All I know is music. It was really uncomfortable for me because I'm used to being really good at stuff, and so the fact that I was like the weakest link in this house, it bothered me a lot, and it was tough. I'm like, I didn't know anything about that. And music in this house didn't. They liked music, but it wasn't doing anything. So like, it made my gift feel very irrelevant. So I had to learn something new, and it took a while. Everyone else is in this house and they're working on games and little news feed or apps and RSS feeds and things like that. Really simple stuff. Because I'm so passionate about music, I started really learning about tech and apps and coding, and then I started looking at why certain apps work and why certain apps don't. And then you start learning about how many apps are actually in the App Store. And then you start thinking, okay, so why do we only, if there's millions of apps in the App Store, we only use like 3 of them, you know what I mean? But everything in our phone is an app, including like the calculator app. So like we have all these apps in our phone. The only ones we actually spend a lot of time on are the social ones, the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and your messenger app that you text people with. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all you use every day, and then every now and then you might, if you use a banking app or whatever for your funds, things like that, utilities. So I started getting the idea, and I thought of Music Kingdom. I think somebody actually in the house, was I was talking about like, man, I kind of want to start maybe like a music streaming platform for
Undiscovered music. And then someone in the house was like, "Music, why don't you call it music?" And I'm like, "Actually, that's pretty sick. That's dope." So so immediately now I'm like creating graphics and experimenting with different logos, and and now we have like the pretty. I think it's gonna be pretty iconic. The little head with the headphones on it and the play button. That's pretty cool. So so I'm experimenting with all this stuff, but I ended up creating that. And then from there, I started working on the deck. But now I'm like super excited because I'm learning so much about apps. So I called my business partner, who's my co-founder of the company now, Brian. He was my manager growing up though, like all through college and stuff. So it's somebody I trusted with just business and music anyway. And so I'm telling him, oh, I'm sorry. I'm telling him about everything, and I'm like, man, music, and it can be a streaming platform, and then it can connect people to do this, and then we can find studios, and it was a lot. It was a lot. So he's like, all right, well, you need to simplify, because right now, like you said a lot, I don't know what you're talking about. Like you seem very excited, but I have no idea what this is. So, and it seemed like that was what was happening every time I would have these conversations with people. It was so much, I wouldn't know where to start. I'm like, man, look, it's not just a streaming platform. It's going to be this, and this. And it was so much, and it was everything from the studio. It was to managing artists, to streaming, to cryptocurrencies, to all these different like things. And it was like, okay, but where do they all fit? And cartoons, you know what I mean? Animes, like all kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, well, how does that all play? Is that all in the app? So then I'm like, okay, yeah, that might be a little overkill. It's too much to put in one app. And I'm looking at other apps and I'm like, okay, maybe they need to be separated. Maybe these are like maybe like a certain brand of app for independent musicians, independent artists, like Nike, you know what I mean? Like Adidas, like Supreme, almost like a boutique type of app. You know what I mean? A boutique music streaming platform. So so I'm going through that. I'm calling people and I'm trying to get funding and stuff. And because the idea was so big, one thing I learned is that like you can't explain your vision to everybody because everybody won't understand. And if you're not strong-minded, you'll have people that'll make you feel stupid for thinking of something so absurd and so large. You know what I mean? It's larger than anything they can think of. So they'll make you feel some type of way about it. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, well, never mind. You know what I mean? Like this is too much, and maybe it is stupid. Maybe it is too much going on. I don't really know what's going. What I'm doing. So that was happening, but it was lingering, man. It was like this tinkering effect in my. That's just like, no, man. Like this is what it is, and I could see it so clearly, even though I couldn't articulate it to people in a way where they would understand what it was. I see it so clearly, and the thing about it is, even right now, it's still not even 20% of what it is. You know what I mean? It's just what it needs to be in this moment in time. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where it came from. So I hope that answered the question.
You've shifted from music into tech, and now you've unified the two with music and technology. For musicians that are listening to this who have no knowledge of code, so same person as Von Graves a few years back.
Absolutely.
For those type of people who don't have any understanding of code, is this knowledge of code something that is very specific to you, or after learning code, do you think that this is a field of knowledge that more musicians need to have a greater understanding of?
Absolutely the latter. I think that more musicians do need to know things. Now I will say they don't need to know how to code. Steve Jobs is someone who didn't make a computer. He just had a vision for what this brand, right? Because he saw more than a laptop. You know what I mean? Steve Jobs saw a life. He saw a lifestyle. He saw a culture. He saw something bigger than just the thing on our phone. It's what we can do with this and how it shapes and changes the world. And so he didn't need to know how to actually build it himself.
He just needed to be able to have a vision, articulate that vision in a way that was in a way that motivated and inspired people around him to want to then go build that thing, because it's so awesome how he just described what it is. And so that being the case, you don't need to code, but you do need to have great ideas, and you need to be able to be excited about them, and you need to be able to articulate and convey what that is in a way that's convincing enough to get people to want to give you resources and buy into to you. You know what I mean? And what it is that you're trying to build. So
I want to shift into future. I know I've been very curious of your thoughts, so with this kind of being longer than the normal podcast episode, but music has evolved a lot, and we've seen it shift from performances into 8-tracks and vinyls, into CDs, into now we have these streaming platforms. And it used to be that you would sell a lot of vinyls and CDs in the 1900s. In today's day, Spotify really makes it pretty challenging for people to make profit off of listening to music via streams.
Absolutely.
Your perspective, tell me if this is off the table, but musicians, how do you think they should be shifting their attention towards actually making money with their art? Is it going to be the same for everyone, or is it different, or are there any categories we could block it into?
So I think it'll be different depending on who you are. So one thing about our artists on music is that a lot of them are multi-dimensional. They're multi-talented artists. So yes, I'm a rapper, but I also know how to engineer. So now it's our job as their manager or management company to help them generate revenue using something that they are good at and that's still in their space. So the objective isn't to go work at a bank or go get a 9 to 5 in order to fund your dream. You know what I mean? That's the most practical way of doing it, especially where we are, you know what I mean, where it's not a lot of opportunity for artists in Ohio, you know what I mean, not on that level. And so our job is to now, okay, like for example, Jay Mills is an amazing artist. He's also an amazing engineer. He has a huge clientele, so he makes money engineering other people's music. It's also allowing him to network with more artists. So now he has a bigger network. Now he's in more people's. His name is in more people's mouths. So now when it is time for him to work on that project, he has a slew of artists that would love to work with him because he's worked on their project, and he could probably and he doesn't have to pay anybody to mix his album because he knows how to do it himself. So self-sustainability. You want to be able to know how to do as much as you can. Not to say that you can do everything by yourself, but you want to have a solid understanding of how everything works. That way you can at least be able to put the people in place to do it and know that they're doing a good job. If you don't know how to do it, then you don't even know if you have someone that's good or bad at what they're doing for you. You know, so I think that's important.
You don't need to know the intricacies. You just need to know enough to be able to convey it to someone who does know more about it.
Absolutely.
Like, a musician doesn't need to know how to code.
Right.
They just need to know enough about the app or website they're trying to build to convey that to the coder in a way that excites them and gets them on board with the project.
Because coding is boring. And no one wants to sit there and except for actual coders. and Pat. You know what I mean? I don't like, it's not fun. It's not fun to sit in front of a computer and meticulously code out certain things. You know, for me, I would prefer to have the idea, be able to find an app similar that maybe isn't doing well in the App Store. Find out who the developer is of that app. Find out how much they would let me buy that app off of them for. And then work from there, because at least all the groundwork is done, and now from there it's just adding.
I love that. Like that's genius, because you're not finding a developer off the street, and you're not starting from scratch.
Right.
You're finding someone that's struggling, and you're saying, look, I see your vision.
Right.
Let's align. Let's figure out that's genius.
Exactly.
I've never heard that concept before, but
yeah, absolutely. So it's just finding quicker ways of doing things. getting it done, because you have people who do have resources, and you know, Facebook, you have companies that are still looking for new things to do, and new companies to buy, and they have plenty of money to do it, and they can go to market really, really fast. So you have to also try to find a way to get to market quick enough to be able to compete and be in that space. And then from there, it's building a brand. So for us, we had to reverse engineer. People were going and kind of seeing what we were doing, seeing the potential in what it is that we were doing, and then creating cookie cutter copies of those things. The brands weren't as sweet though, you know what I mean? And you can tell like it wasn't as much thought that went into it, because they got the idea. They go to market though, but because they got to market and they have the resources and they have the capital to do it, you know, they technically win that battle. You know what I mean? They're out there now, and we're not. The cool thing about it though, and the thing that's encouraging, is because it's so much bigger than just an app. I think that's where most of these other companies, they kind of get stuck at. They're just looking at it from a very limited, very, very limited thing. I want to create this thing because I saw it was a great idea, and I want to make a lot of money off of it. And then they're willing to, you know, have a bigger company come acquire it, and then they make their money, and then they go do what they do. So they're not even passionate about it in the first place. And so, you know, I think passion is a very underrated thing to have. You know, when you're passionate about stuff, you're willing to fail and keep doing it, where other people won't. And another thing about these companies that take ideas is that when it doesn't work, you know what I mean, because you haven't even tested it, it was just an idea. But when it doesn't work and they start losing millions and millions of dollars, they stop. You know what I mean? With us, it's a little different. We have the idea, we're passionate about it, and we're going to figure out how to make it work one way or another, even if it takes us longer to do so. But it's a marathon, not a race. So yeah, they got the market faster, but who's going to be here in 10 or 20 years?
Final conversation. We talked, you mentioned there are millions of apps on the App Store.
Yes.
Undiscovered artists are trying to get discovered, and in my idea, tell me if I'm wrong, it's not best to fight against where all the attention is at. It's best to move to where attention is moving towards and make a space where there is very little people capturing that attention. So like,
I agree. Even like even with like TikTok, for example.
that was what I was gonna say. So you adopted TikTok. Hey, this is a platform where there's a bunch of kids on, but not necessarily adults.
Right.
But those kids have to grow up. And
Right.
if they're growing up
Exactly.
using TikTok,
Exactly.
that's the platform they're going to use. Like we grew up with Instagram.
Exactly.
Our parents grew up with, well, they didn't grow up with Facebook, but they adopted Facebook.
Right.
Let's talk voice technology.
Yeah.
We talked the evolution of music, millions of apps on the App Store.
Yes.
You were in with us yesterday or 2 days ago putting Bong Graves on Amazon Alexa.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the intersection of musicians and this voice technology?
So the voice thing is cool, right? Because what it is you're able to be more intimate with your fans, being able to talk to them. Where I really see things being, and me and you kind of had this conversation before, is the whole VR experiences. I think that VR is the future of music and albums. I think that you have really incredible artists that are able to direct cool music videos, right? You have Kanye, you know, I'm a little bit older than maybe some of these people, so like Kid Cudi and
Lil Nas X?
Lil Nas X is newer, sure. We'll say him, you know. Great artists that are very creative, and Lil Uzi, you know, even. Very creative, and they can create, you know, these experiences with their shows. Travis Scott, we'll even use him.
Astroworld.
Yeah, you know, Astroworld was an experience.
Yep.
His concert was a roller coaster thing. You know what I mean?
That was epic.
I think that when you have the goggles and you have these headphones, and I think that, you know, you have kids that are playing Fortnite and playing video games all day long, so their senses are already like super sensitive. You know what I mean? They're like, everything has to be visual, and I have to hear it, and I gotta be able to interact and be in it. I think that is where albums and music is going, and that's why I do try to create my music like that, so it's already ready to be converted into, you know, the new VR album. But I was talking to someone. This was like a year ago, and I was talking about like Drake's Views album, and how awesome it would be if for a whole album you can be your favorite artist. You know, waking up in the bed and maybe the intro of the album, the music is playing. You wake up, it's VR. You look to your left, and you know, first off, you wake up and in this album or whatever, you know, you're looking around the room, and it's a huge, nice luxury room because Drake just built a really awesome house. You know, so his room is awesome. So you're in this room, and you look to your left, and it's your / Drake's phone on the dresser, and you see Lil Wayne calling or somebody, or you know what I mean, and you think it's cool. You look to your right, you see a beautiful woman sleep with her back turned to you, and her body is amazing. She gets up, she walks to the bathroom, but she walks in front of the bed. You can follow her all the way to the, like, you know, visually, you can watch her walk to the bathroom. Her body is awesome. She takes a shower, but she leaves the door cracked a little bit. You see the silhouette of her in the shower. Boom. That whole scene right there with the music playing is an experience. Next song. Now you're in the back of his Maybach. You look to your left and you see champagne and you see all his homies. You look to your right and there's a window. And it's tinted. And you're driving down the street in like downtown Toronto. The window cracks down a little bit. They can see the top of your head. Now all of a sudden you see people looking over and pointing at the car and pointing at your window, and now they're like chasing the Maybach down the street. And then you can roll the window back up or whatever. Things like that. That makes an album and makes music way cooler. You know what I mean? Because not only do I hear it, but I get to see what that artist felt and what mind state they were in when they even created it in the first place. That's how we're going to create super fans and create the future of entertainment.
I love that. Biggest concerns I have right now with, well, I guess, question. So I pitched it to you as voice, and then you were like, yes, but even bigger is VR.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see voice almost like the tablet, where it's here and people think it's hip, but it'll, in the grand scheme of things, it's just another mobile device?
Well, let me ask you this counter question. What is the end goal for? Where do you see voice?
I see voice creating that interactive experience for the listener.
Okay.
Up until now, music has been created very linearly. There's a start, there's a progression, there's an end.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who's listening to it, no matter the context of where they're listening to it, or what mood they're in, that is the album. I see voice creating these contexts of, there's a speaker over there, there's a smart speaker on my phone, I have an Alexa. Take the context and then create an entirely unique experience for the end listener using that context and using voice and artificial intelligence. I really see voice as just a way to interact with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
I think when people think artificial intelligence, especially in 2020, they think voice. Because how do you interact with artificial intelligence?
What is artificial intelligence being robots, right? Layman's terms.
Artificial intelligence meaning, like, so one way you interact with artificial intelligence is when you scroll on Instagram. There's an algorithm that is saying, okay, in order to increase the likelihood that he swipes one more time up, we're going to put this piece of content in. It's entirely curated to you.
Okay.
If I look at my feed, it's going to look entirely different than your feed. And even if we're following the exact same people, the context is different.
Okay.
So the feed is different.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
when I say AI, you don't think of Instagram.
Right.
You think of robots.
Right.
And what are the robots you think of?
Androids.
Some sort of
Yeah,
android that
robot.
has some anthropomorphized,
It looks like a person.
looks like a person, talks
Right.
like a person, listens like a person.
Mm-hmm.
AI is already being used on a daily basis. But how are people interacting with it? Right now it's via screen facing and thumb swiping. Growing numbers of people, especially the youngest and the oldest, are leveraging voice technology. And in the same way that TikTok is popular amongst young people, and the reason that's valuable is those young people will grow up
Mm-hmm.
having this bedrock foundation of TikTok. I'm seeing a similar thing with voice technology where these young kids are sitting at home and their parents took away their tablets because we see that young kids interacting with tablets can lead to some social disorders,
Okay.
but they still have these Alexa devices.
And when you say tablets, you're also talking about phones, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, any sort of screen device.
Gotcha.
Those voice devices are, you might not know Khalil. Khalil sends me a video of his little sister playing a SpongeBob game on this Echo Show. And he's like, how'd you find that? And she's like, I have no idea. She had no idea how she discovered it, but she's standing there staring at this little Echo Show, playing a game on it for hours. How long do you spend talking to smart speakers?
I don't.
You don't?
A lot of time.
Because you're focused on building a business. You're focused on creating music. You're focused on exploring when you can. But at the end of the day, you're probably not spending as much time on TikTok as kids are.
Right.
You're getting on, experimenting, putting out your experiment, and then getting off.
Right.
Which is smart. Very smart. You're running a lot of experiments. I hear you with the VR. I think it is going to create a lot. I have a VR headset at my house. I didn't buy it. It was gifted to me from a mentor. I have it. I had to plug it into my computer. I had to download all the software. It didn't work on my first laptop because it wasn't powerful enough. Plugged it into my high-powered gaming computer, and then it still wasn't super awesome, and I had to then buy everything after that $500 headset. So I'm thinking, like, accessibility-wise, voice is built in to any Android phone, which is cheaper than iPhone. And on iPhone, you have Siri built in, and then you can download the Google Assistant. On Black Friday, those little devices sell for $19. So I see this barrier to entry being very low, and the adoption has already been massive. So I'm trying to, I hear you with the VR. And I think that the technology will get cheaper over time. So I'm just trying to think from your perspective, do you think voice is just like a distraction, and it's just a middle ground before we head to that VR? Or do you see this as kind of a core element of technology that is going to impact musicians on the same level that VR will, web has, and mobile has?
Well, I guess the question for me is with the voice AI, and we're not just talking about Androids. Now we're just talking about literally in general algorithms and
Algorithms.
So with that being the case, then yes, I do see that being another a component prior to everything being so VR
Immersive. Truly immersive. Which that is.
From a sense,
You're a good storyteller. I saw that entire story of the Drake. You're a good storyteller.
And they serve two different purposes, right? The VR thing is from a fan perspective, right? Because you have to separate them into two categories of people. So from a fan of music, I don't do music, but I love music and I love finding artists and stuff. I'm assuming the AI thing will work in a sense of being able to show them artists that they would like based on music that they've listened to before. Is Spotify not already curating playlists around artists already with the voice thing? So from a sense, I'm trying to think of use cases. What would be what's the purpose of it? And then what we talked about yesterday, the cool factor. What tangible experience or app or whatever is it that is making me feel like voice is the way to go, right? It's hard for me to word what I'm saying. So the thing about the VR thing that's cool is, one, people like opening up stuff. So I'm opening up this package and I got the headphones and stuff, or whatever. So that's already cool. As a
unboxing, very cool.
As a brand guy and the CEO of a company, I'm thinking of using branded VR equipment. Now you talking about how much everything costs. I'm like, okay, I wonder how we can get those costs down to but yeah, having those and being able to package that. I guess the algorithm thing of it is just something you don't see. You just kind of just do, from an algorithm standpoint of curating music for me to listen to, where it knows what I like. I see that being very valuable, especially, a company like ours, when we're talking about creating these apps and wanting to make sure that we're able to pair this undiscovered artist with this fan that would love that type of artist. That is where I would see that, definitely being a case. From a speaking standpoint, of like what we were doing with the Alexa and stuff, that was definitely very cool for the artists. You know, to have that experience, and I guess from a fan standpoint, if I'm a super fan of that artist, to be able to do that as well. So so I see that as being definitely cool. I see them both being able to exist. You know what I mean? Coexist together because they do
Yes.
different things.
Yes, agreed. Coexist. One does not need to win. The mobile phone did not defeat web.
Right.
VR probably won't defeat voice, but they'll coexist.
They'll
And you'll use different technologies.
Because
for
you'll have
different-
you'll have different ways of using them, just like blockchain. You know what I mean? There's so many like different ways of using blockchain than just cryptocurrency.
I really like your insight on this. Like, especially you knowing technology, knowing music, and then also having this idea for virtual reality.
Mhm.
I love your input and your perspective that you have on voice.
I appreciate it.
For fans that are listening and want to start to follow either Von Graves or the USIC brand,
Absolutely.
what's the best way for people to follow along, get connected with you, start to engage with USIC more?
So Instagram for sure. My Instagram is at Real Von Graves, so that's Real REAL, and then Von VONGRAVES. Same on Twitter and Facebook. Instagram is the same way. Instagram is USIC Brands, USIC BRANDS. Oh, TikTok. Yeah, you can follow me on TikTok too, guys. I just got some new ones, some new TikToks. But USIC Brands, and then our website, usicbrands.com. We also have USIC Brand with no s.com. We also have USIC.co, USIC.co. So all of those are just able to just see our team, see more about what we're about, and then from an Instagram standpoint, being able to follow along with just our journey. You know, how certain artists are doing as we continue to grow and evolve. You know, being able to see new developments and new stuff that we release. You know, so yeah.
Do you have any final words to kind of send off? Any tips or any last final thoughts to send people into their day? People who are listening to this in the morning on their drive to work? Any kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was telling you before I got here, you know, with the whole Kobe Bryant thing, and not to be all morbid or anything, but, you know, it really just kind of puts in perspective how fragile, you know, life is, and how, you know, I'm sure Kobe had a lot of really big dreams. His daughter had dreams, you know, and things that she wanted to do, and then you know, doesn't live to actually do it. So I think that, you know, it's important to always, you know, be in the future and have a vision for where you want your life to go. But it's also really important to execute and do as much as you can in that day, and make sure that everything that you do and put out means something, and if that's the last thing that you've ever released or launched, that it represents you to the best of your abilities, and that it is what you want to be remembered for. You know, a lot of artists like to just make music, and I get, you know, a lot of slack, especially, you know, even from like our artists too, and especially like, you know, management team and stuff, for just how long it takes me to release music and to build my albums and stuff. But I've always taken the approach of like, I don't have room for subpar, half-ass stuff. Like I can't do that. You know what I mean? If it's the last thing I do, I don't want to be remembered for something half-assed. Also too, you know, words are important and they impact people. So, you know, I want to take my time on my craft because I'm passionate about it, and it's what I love, and it's what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And so I'm not going to take that for granted and waste it. And I think that, you know, from an artist standpoint, just make sure that you're saying what you want to say, and you're happy with what it is that you're releasing, if that's the last thing that you've ever done. You know, so yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're trying to find some new music, go follow USIC or Real Von Graves to get connected with some undiscovered musicians. Von, thank you for joining us on the show.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you. That's pretty good.